Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It's not raining right now, but it has been raining off and on, and we're supposed to get rain pretty much throughout the day off and on, which is a good thing because it's been a little dry the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've mentioned this before. Every time a rain shower would come through the area, it would just kind of go around us. And so we haven't had any in a while, and I know that the garden is loving it. Because, well, I'm also loving it too because it keeps me from watering the garden a little bit more. Speaking of that, we talk about all the stuff going on. We talk about how the world, and especially the United States, just seems to be falling apart. It seems to be in this state of collapse, you know. And one of the things that I try to talk about often, and that I wanted to remind you of, is that the importance of growing your own food. It is just paramount. My wife and I, we were talking yesterday. We'd actually watched this documentary. Actually, we watched 2 documentaries yesterday afternoon. You know, a short one and then another one. And in the one, I'm not gonna say which one it was or anything, because I'm not putting it down. But it put out some really great information. And then at the end, the solution that they gave to all these problems going on in the world is that we need to vote the right people into office, and then good people need to run for office. You know, we need to run for office on a local level. That good people, we just need to vote the right people into office, and then all of these problems will be taken care of. And this video is not to discourage people from voting or to tell you that it's a waste of time and all this kind of stuff, but I will tell you this. We have been doing that as a people for a long time. And for a long time, things have just been perpetually getting worse. So I don't think that that's necessarily the solution. And I know that it's not going to cause America to greatly change because at the core, the culture, who we are as a people has to change. And also in the video, it was talking about the possibility if enough people got together and we just come up with a new constitution. You know, if we got enough states to do a constitutional convention and do a new constitution. And personally, I believe that that's not a solution either. And the reason why that's not a solution is because the people, the culture hasn't changed. If you have a home or a building that's falling apart and that needs to be repaired, and the foundation, and part of it's because the foundation is crumbling and it's all falling apart. You can build a new house as many times as you want on top of that foundation, but if the foundation is bad and it's crumbling, it's going to end up in the same place. And as America, we see all of these problems. We see everything that's happening, and so many times we want to think that you know, the easy way out is we'll just wait till the next election. You know, this guy that's running, he's a good guy, and we get him into office and it's going to fix everything. Or, you know, if it gets really bad, we can just come up with some new laws or a new constitution. That's just rebuilding a house on a bad foundation. And I'm telling you, it's not going to work. The foundation has to be redone. And that foundation in America, I believe it's our culture. We've turned away from morality. We've turned away from God. And as a people, we've become hyper dependent upon a system that's out of our control. We have turned away from traditional family values. We've turned away from God. And until those things are fixed, it doesn't matter who gets elected into office. You know, if there was some kind of revolution and a new government and new documents were written, I don't know that it would be much better, especially in the long run, because at the core is rotten. And the people are dependent upon everything. We're dependent upon our food and our every need that we have outside of us. And until we break the bonds of that so that we're no longer slaves to all of this, then things could change. Because, you know, if we started to, let's just hypothetically say a new constitution, new laws were written. As they're being written, we're like, well, we gotta make that law work for this, because, you know, we have to have our electricity, and we have to have our food, and we have to have this, and we have to have that. If we were completely self-sufficient as a people, we wouldn't be beholden to big corporations or BlackRock or big government. And so at the core, between our morality and the fact that we're no longer a self-sufficient nation, I don't know that things would change. Did you know that around 1900 or so, that about half of America was farmers? And by 1945, still 40 to 45% of the food that the average American ate, they grew it themselves. You know, most everyone had some kind of backyard garden, balcony garden. They were raising chickens. Even in cities, this was very normal. Today, about 1% of Americans grow any kind of food on their own. It's because we're no longer self-sufficient. Most people don't even know where food comes from or how it works. I mean, you can see interviews online of these people. They talk to them on the streets, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we gotta stop this farming. Farming's bad." You know, I mean, all of these think tank groups and these really intelligent people tell us that farming is polluting the planet. So we just need to stop farming. Okay, well, what are we going to eat? I mean, if we outlawed farming, what are we going to eat? People don't know. They don't understand. They you know, there's people that lash out at hunters because they go out and they hunt or they fish for meat, and yet they'll go buy a hamburger at the store, and they don't put two and two together that was an animal once too. They have no concept of what goes into producing food. And it's I believe made us a very weak people, because we're no longer self-sufficient. We're no longer able to stand on our feet. And even though if we had to truly be self-sufficient, things may not be always what we want, at least we know we could survive. And we've lost that rugged survival skills that Americans once had, that idea that no matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets, I know that I can make it. I know that I can survive on my own. I know how to make things work on my own. May not be great, may not be comfortable, but I can do it. In large part, America has lost that. And so I just want to reiterate a message that I talk about all the time of how important it is to be, first part, as mentally independent as you can be. And then work towards developing the skills and the ability to produce as much as possible. It doesn't mean that you completely sever your ties with the world, with the supply chain, with the businesses and everything that you buy from. It just means that you have the ability to do that. Because at some point, and I believe that point is coming very, very, very close, we need to, in large mass, secede from this culture. This culture is rotten. Just yesterday, some of you have probably seen it. If you haven't, you can go online. It's all over Twitter. If you're on Twitter, look for the Washington, D.C. Pride Parade. And the images and the videos coming out of there, well, they're just disgusting. I don't know how to explain it, at least not in a G-rated language. I don't know how to explain it. It's absolutely horrific. The stuff, they had a big Pride Fest and Pride Parade, and it was awful. Our country, it's fallen apart, and our culture is at the core of that. The American culture is fallen apart. We've turned our backs on God. You know, if you look at statistically, people that are following either no religion like atheism or some type of pagan religion are growing in numbers faster than people that are, you know, of some sort of biblical Christian faith. We've turned our backs on the family. Every civilization, every civilization that's ever existed, at the core, The family was the most important thing. Like a civilization couldn't exist without family. That was it. I mean, at its very broken down to its very smallest unit, a civilization is family. And here we are for the first time in ever, completely destroying that and saying that that's wrong, that family's bad, that moms are bad, dads aren't dads, moms aren't moms. We're teaching children that men can have babies, literally. There's books out there, little children's books, teaching them that it is possible. They're not explaining that it's actually a woman dressed up as a man. They're just flat out saying that absolutely a man can have a child. We've completely distorted and perverted innocence and what it means to be a child. And we've robbed that as a civilization from a whole generation, at least. This civilization, this culture is rotten. And much as what we've learned for those of you that are Bible believers in the good book, it talks about how we're supposed to be separated from this world, that we're supposed to be set apart, that we're not supposed to be in the world. We're part of it. We have to come out of Babylon. And one of the ways that we do that, it's not just a spiritual separation. I mean, it definitely is a spiritual separation, but it's not just a spiritual separation. There has to be a physical separation too. Throughout the entire Bible, you go all the way back from Genesis all the way through to Revelation. And of course, there's all kinds of teachings and stories that are relating to our spiritual walk with God the Father. But in almost every one of those, there's something physical that has to be done. It's the physical manifestation of a spiritual act. And when we talk about us separating from this rotten culture, when we separate spiritually, we no longer are part of that. There has to be physical stuff too. We have to, in a sense, secede from the culture. And one of the ways that we can do that is to be as self-sufficient as possible, producing as much stuff as you can, and then figuring out how to live without certain things. That's a conversation we have often here at the homestead and with some of our friends is, what are some things that it may be not now, but in the future that we can work towards, that we can become self-sufficient in? And then what are the things in our lives, maybe the products that we purchase, things that we enjoy, whatever we do, that we can just eliminate when we have to. We can just say, we're not doing this anymore. We're not purchasing this anymore. It would be inconvenient, but we'll figure out another way to do it. Not participating in their entertainment, not participating in their education systems, not participating in pretty much anything as much as possible. Because at the core, the culture is bad. And as believers, as traditional people, as family-focused people, we have to learn that and realize that everything that's happening around us is a direct attack against you, your family, and your beliefs. And why would you want to go out in that all the time and constantly be attacked? Why not say, I'm going to make an effort, make it a goal to begin leaning up my life so that I don't need as much. I'm going to be changing things so that I don't have to go to these businesses or go and do that or support these things or use these services. I'm going to turn my focus on, businesses that think like I do. Focus on going places that I know are still wholesome and that are, family and God-centered. I'm going to, not allow things in my home, whether it be music and movies and television shows or internet or anything like that, that isn't uplifting to God and uplifting to family traditional values. Until we start doing that, we're just as big of the problem as the people dancing and twerking in the middle of the streets in front of children half naked. Because we've not set ourselves apart. We have to do that. We have to set ourselves apart. And going back to the food thing, that's a big one. Americans used to do that. Like I said, up until 1945, there was still a lot of Americans that was not so dependent upon the system. They weren't dependent upon their food from the government or from a supply chain. During the Great Depression, as bad as it was for many people, and I remember hearing stories from my grandmother that lived through it, and it was very hard on them. They weren't very wealthy. They were very, very poor. And she said, but we always had food. It wasn't always great food, but we always had food because we grew it ourselves. We produced our own food. We didn't have a whole lot, we'd go with no shoes for a few years, or very few, shoes falling apart, our clothes were tattered. She said we had almost nothing. She said, but we ate because we produced it ourselves as a family. And so that may be that first step for you to kind of sever your ties. And I'll tell you what, if you've never grown food before, when you've harvested those first vegetables, or those first eggs, or that first time you butcher a chicken, the feeling inside of you, that power that you feel, that you are now know how to be self-sufficient. You are now not a slave to the system. You're not beholden to this evil, corrupt system. You are now capable. You have the knowledge and the skills to produce food to keep you and your family alive. It's empowering. And I want to encourage you to be thinking about these things and coming up with a plan, and then putting that plan into action immediately. Because we don't have time. We don't have months and years and decades to be planning this out. This stuff needs to be done now. We need to be getting our houses in order and severing our ties from this corrupt culture. It's time to get yourselves and your families prepared mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.